morning, everyone. That's a nice loud mic. I'm Sandy Vidal. I'm one of the two co-presidents of the League of Women Voters of Orange County. Welcome on behalf of the League to those of you who have braved the heat to be with us today, and those of you who are tuning in on Facebook Live. Our theme today is One Vote Makes All the Difference. We're here to remind all that tomorrow is the primary election and how important it is to vote tomorrow, if you haven't already. We also are here to celebrate the Centennial and the 100th year anniversary of the day the 19th Amendment was ratified, when women won the right to vote in the United States. Go women. In the League, we've been working 2 years to set the stage for the Centennial because it gives us an excuse to talk about our favorite issues. What's that? The importance of voting. One vote can make a difference. Your vote, and the importance of fighting for equal voting rights and votes for all. We started this morning by waving signs and making noise on Orange Avenue, celebrating our precious right to vote. Just want to ask everybody to raise their hands who was part of that. No applause, but just raise your hands if you were marching and waving signs out there. Thank you, everybody. Those are our Warriors for Democracy marchers. We've been joined today by some reenactors of historic leaders in the fight to win the vote for women. Let me introduce, just wave because you'll be introduced formally later, Susan B. Anthony, who is played by Dr. Betsy Fulmer, the first African-American suffragist, Sojourner Truth, Dr. Mary Graham Lawrence, an important figure you'll hear more about today, Harry T. Byrne, played by James Erwin. Speaking briefly today will be Linda Chapin, the former Orange County Mayor and Chair of the League Centennial Committee, and Gloria Picard, our other co-chair, and you'll also hear from the Orange County and City of Orlando mayors. Thank you so much. Linda.
Thank you so much, Sandy. When I think of how we anticipated this anniversary and the events that we had in mind for this day and for the 26th, all of that before March, I am so pleased that so many of us could gather together here to celebrate this event. We are here, of course, to recognize the inclusion of 28 small words in the Constitution of the United States. The rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. 100 years ago tomorrow, as you will hear time and time again as we talk today, the state of Tennessee became the 36th state that was required to ratify the amendment passed by Congress the year before, and then 8 days later, on August 26th, the amendment was certified and officially adopted into the Constitution. The fight for women's suffrage had been a decades-long battle. We are proud that the National American Women's Suffrage Association was led by Carrie Chapman Catt, who succeeded Susan B. Anthony in that role, and later founded the League of Women Voters. Please abandon the impression that they were all stuffy, black-clad, old white women. Sorry, Susan. Some were, but many black leaders, like Ida B. Wells, were valuable participants in the movement. And some were fiery young radicals, like Alice Paul, who in 1913 staged the biggest protest march that had ever been seen in the nation's capital. And we should remember, as we in the League do, that this victory in August of 1920 did not include all women. Ironically, it was not until several years later that the first women in this country, Native American women, attained voting rights. Chinese immigrant women were left out. Women in Puerto Rico could not vote even in local elections until 1929, and even then they had a literacy test. And many of the black women who had been part of the struggle were banned from the polls for years after that by the Jim Crow laws of the South. We are recognizing the ratification a day early for two reasons. Tomorrow's election day, and the League is all about getting the vote out. And secondly, it gives us a chance to remind everyone that one vote can make a difference. The one vote cast by our friend Harry T. Burns in the Tennessee legislature at the urging of his beloved mother was the tipping point for the 19th Amendment. We are so pleased that our community's leaders have joined in this celebration today. It is remarkable for them to take time out of their busy schedules to be here with us, and it is my privilege first to introduce Mayor Buddy Dyer of the City of Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor Chapin, and I am very pleased to be here on this beautiful August morning to celebrate with the League of Women Voters Women's Equality Day. And do it here in the City of Orlando, as I know people are doing it all across the country. I have a proclamation from the City of Orlando. Whereas August 26, 2020 celebrates the 100th anniversary of the right to vote for most American women, and this date is recognized nationally as Women's Equality Day. And whereas the women's suffrage movement began in Seneca Falls, New York in July 1848 and became the first and one of the most effective social movements in American history. And whereas part of celebrating the battle to win the vote, we recognize that the final victory for ratification of the 19th Amendment was achieved after a single tie-breaking vote in the Tennessee legislature on August 18, 1920. And whereas the League of Women Voters of the United States was formed to inform and encourage and educate an electorate and has provided nonpartisan voter service for a century, the League of Women Voters of Orange County has educated Central Florida residents for more than 80 years. And whereas the City of Orlando is grateful for the efforts of the League of Women Voters of Orange County and all residents who are working to achieve gender equality in the facets of our society, as we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, we reaffirm our commitment to assure that rights and privileges are available to all residents equally. Now, therefore, we, Buddy Dyer, Mayor of the City of Orlando, Jim Gray, Tony Ortiz, Robert Stewart, Patty Sheehan, Regina Hill, and Bakari Burns, City Commissioners of the City of Orlando, do hereby proclaim August 26, 2020 as Women's Equality Day in the City of Orlando.
Good morning to all of you. I'm very honored to be here for many reasons. First off, I think that it is very befitting that we are here at the Orange County History Center on this great day. I say that for many reasons because in terms of honor, I believe that it is appropriate to give honor to those whom honor is due. And I'm privileged to be on the program this morning with Orange County's very first elected county chairman and mayor, the Honorable Linda Chapin, and so who happens to be a woman, but the very first as well. And so on this day, as we are here on the eve of a very important day in our community, the primaries are tomorrow, I just happen to be married to one of the current women who is a vociferous fighter for voting rights for all people, but certainly for women, and that is my wife, the Honorable Congresswoman Val Butler. And so it is very important to all of us that we come out. I am a proud member of the League of Women Voters as well myself, and so today I'm asked to be here to present a proclamation on behalf of Orange County citizens, and I'll read the proclamation. Fortunately, Mayor Dyer, it's not very long, so it says, whereas the suffragists began an organized fight for women's equality in 1848, demanding the right to vote during the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. And whereas we recognize the bold, daring, and powerful women who fought for the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which was certified on August the 26th, 1920. And whereas today more than 68 million women vote in elections due to the efforts of suffragists who were determined to making equality a reality for all women. And whereas Susan B. Anthony, Alice Paul, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucy Stone, Ida B. Wells, and others delivered speeches, created petitions, marched in parades, and argued that women, like men, deserved all of the rights and responsibilities of citizenship. And whereas for more than 80 years, the Florida League of Women's Voters in Orange County has supported sound representative governance, championed justice, and protected families in an effort to create a stronger community while advocating for the voting rights of all. And whereas suffragists will continue to forge ahead, focusing on the need to protect voting rights, support good government, and foster community progress. Now, therefore, I, Jerry L. Demings, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the Orange County Mayor, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, August the 26th, 2020, as Women's Suffragists' 100th anniversary day in Orange County, Florida, and encourage residents to support this very worthwhile cause. Done in order, the 17th day of August 2020, signed by yours truly. Thank you, and God bless.
We have always been grateful for the support of enlightened and active men in our cause, and we are so pleased to have had both of our mayors with us this morning. I'm going to present each of them with the mask that you see us wearing today. That reminds people, and they will be seeing lots of people, as they always do, to vote. And we have some other special guests, as were noted today. And I would like to call forth Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, and another important man in our lives, Harry Burns.
My name is Susan B. Anthony. I was born a little over 200 years ago. I never married, but devoted my entire life to winning the right to vote for women. Thousands of women fought, suffered, and devoted their lives to the cause for 72 years before receiving the right to vote. I did not live to see that happen, but women finally won the right to vote when the 19th Amendment was ratified on August 18, 1920. And one vote turned the tide. That's 100 years ago tomorrow, the very same day that you can go to the polls to vote in the important Florida primary election. And I'm here to tell you in no uncertain terms to vote in every election, because one vote, your vote makes a difference. And don't ever forget that.
My name is Sojourner Truth. Some people call me the first African-American suffragist. You may think that those suffragists fighting were all the vote for white women. Indeed, history gives them the most of that story. But in fact, women of color were working throughout the fight for the vote. I was born into slavery in New York. I was 9 years old when I was sold away from my family for $100. and that price included a flock of sheep. Before I was 13, I was sold 3 more times. Some say I was unruly. Eventually, I married and had children, and that tied me down. But in 1826, I escaped with my baby girl. I was born a fighter, thanks to Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison. Eventually, I won my freedom and even won back my little son who had been illegally taken from me and sold into slavery. I joined the fight for voting rights and traveled the country preaching for the rights of all people. I even got invited to the White House by President Abraham Lincoln. I'm here to tell you that we fought hard for your precious right to vote. And the fight is not over. Every vote counts. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Harry T. Byrne, Representative Byrne, if you please. A member in good standing of the Tennessee House of Representatives in 1920. There was high drama in the Tennessee House on August 18, 100 years ago. Fighting hard, women had convinced 35 state legislatures to ratify the 19th Amendment, but they needed 36. Tennessee was their last hope. Both sides were lobbying hard. The Senate approved the amendment, but the House was tied, 48-48. I was an opponent, all ready to vote no, until I got a letter from my mother telling me to be a good boy and vote for suffrage. Of course, I listened to my mother. I cast my vote for the 19th Amendment. My vote broke the logjam of opposition. Women had won the right to vote. Whenever you wonder about whether your vote matters, remember me, Harry T. Byrne. One vote makes all the difference.
Let me present these proclamations to our co-president, Gloria Picard, who will close the program.
Good morning. I'm Gloria Picard, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Orange County. My remarks will be brief and simple. First, thank you, Mayor Dyer. Thank you, Mayor Demings, for your proclamations that you presented here today and for honoring us with your presence. We will treasure these proclamations. Now for the simple part. Quite simply, we are here to recognize the women who fought hard, fought long, and suffered greatly for women's suffrage, including and especially these black women and women of color who couldn't share in this right until the Voting Rights Act of 1965, and for whom the right continues to be suppressed to this very day. In 1920, all women got the right to vote, or almost all, as Linda pointed out, but black women still didn't get to vote. And quite simply, we are here to step up and speak out against voter suppression and voter oppression in every form. In the late 19th century and the early 20th century, women fought and suffered for votes for women. Today, we stand here and fight for votes for all. Our right to vote and our democracy are under attack as we stand here today. The U.S. Postal Service is a necessary lifeline for those like me who cannot risk going to the polls in person to cast their vote. We must be allowed to vote by mail or securely without exposure to COVID-19, drop off our ballots at early voting locations. The newly appointed Postmaster General, with direction from our President, has taken steps to undermine the vote by cutting back on post office and delivery hours, services, and equipment, when the largest by-mail voting in history is expected. The League of Women Voters stands firmly against these actions. No person should have to choose between their health and safety and exercising their constitutional right to vote in the worst pandemic in a century. And quite simply, we are here to underscore that every vote counts. One vote, your vote, does make a difference. A single vote by a young congressman who decided to listen to his mother and to get the 19th Amendment ratified. Tied elections have been decided by the simplest of criteria, rather than what the majority of voters want. It was the drawing of a highest card in a deck of cards that determined the 2011 city council race in Nevada. Coin tosses have settled lots of elections. In 2006, an Alaska State House seat was settled by the candidate who won a coin toss. He went on to become Speaker of the Alaska State House, a job he surely would not have risen to if he had lost that first election because someone said, because maybe she or he said, my vote just doesn't matter. Our closest presidential election in American history in the year 2000 was finally decided by our U.S. Supreme Court because it was too close to call in Florida. In 2018, our Florida governor and Florida U.S. senator went to massive recounts because both contests, as we know, had razor-thin margins. And in neighboring Mount Dora, in 2014, the tied race for city council was decided by the city clerk, drawing one candidate's name out of a felt top hat. The list goes on. Quite simply, close elections are more frequent than most people acknowledge. Too many of us think, I'm only one vote and one vote can't matter, so why bother? No, every vote counts. People struggled and died for you to have this right. Don't throw it away. Don't give it away. What is the saying? Use it or lose it? Well, let's be sure to protect it and exercise it. And, quite simply, we are here to call attention to the primary election tomorrow that coincides with the centennial of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. If you haven't yet voted, please go to the polling place and cast your vote. League of Women Voters of Orange County is proud to volunteer to staff 2 polling places and provide trained volunteers to fill in at other polls for this upcoming elections, for both of our upcoming elections. The primary election matters. We believe that local elections and our U.S. Census decide our everyday quality of life. Law enforcement, school board, city and county government, even election supervisors are on the ballot. Make your voice heard, be counted, and complete your census. Our state loses $20,000 in federal funding for every person not counted. And, quite simply, we are here to celebrate the equality and power of women. It is August 26th, when most of us will celebrate the real centennial of women's suffrage and the declaration of our fundamental right to vote. That is the day when the 19th Amendment was certified and added to the U.S. Constitution. That day forever changed the face of our American electorate. Therefore, our mayors, the League of Women Voters, and our entire nation have declared August 26th as Women's Equality Day. All over America, we will be celebrating. So finally, get ready to vote November 3rd in the most consequential general election in modern history. Go to vote411.org, designed by the League of Women Voters, for your election information. Vote like your life depends on it. Trust me, it does. And please vote early. Thank you. And that concludes our program. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you especially to our mayors for being here. And thank you to our Centennial of Suffrage Chair, Linda Chapin.